Well, I want to say good morning to everyone and thank you all for coming. And again, I hope everyone and their families experience good health and keeping safe. And I have noticed a tremendous uptick in business over the last week, where there's a lot more people engaging and talking about financial planning. And I guess it's a good sign. People have a lot of needs. I know Larry Bloom was telling me how busy the accounting world is, and it just hasn't stopped. And life goes on, and we're going to try and make the best of what we got. So we've gone virtual for the last 2 months, and just to give you an update, we have a website that should be coming out next week. We'll have membership forms and everything else. We'll be hosting more virtual meetings that we have planned in the future. In 2 weeks, we have someone talking about private financing and premium financing of their life policy. Very highly respected person from John Hancock, Advanced Sales. 2 weeks after that, we will be doing Phil Kanyok and Larry Bloom. We'll be speaking and doing a case design and talk about forensic accounting and how important that is. And it'll be more of a participatory event. And again, if there's events that you're interested in that we're not doing, please let us know. We are open for discussion. But please, we do need your membership applications and members that come in. They're trickling in so that we can fund future events and keep the education and the networking going. Larry, do you want to talk about membership real quick?
Sure. Again, welcome everybody this morning. As Neil stated, we expect our website to be up and running by early next week, and we'll be able to process membership applications through the website directly. We've been doing this for a couple of years. We started out with monthly meetings, live meetings. Remember back in the day when everybody got to congregate in a room together, shake hands, have breakfast together. Current situation has forced us to take our meetings online, and by doing so, we've been able to expand and have meetings twice a month now and bring informative topics to everybody. But in order to continue to grow and do this, we need your support. Annual membership is $200. It's going to help us pay for the website, email blasts, other campaigns, distributing materials. Once the website is up and running, everybody will have an opportunity to not only have yourself listed on our website as a member, so where you can showcase what your area of expertise is, but it's a great way to meet people and build your resources. We have lawyers, we have attorneys here, insurance professionals, investment advisors, CPAs that do different things, attorneys that do different things, real estate appraisers. It's a great community, and it's a great way to build your network. And we've done a couple of charity events over the past 2 years. We're hoping to pick up some of the charity events as this year gets further on. That's one of our pillars. Education is a pillar, networking and building connections is a pillar, but charity is also very important to us. So, check out our website. Next week we'll be sending out an email when it's available, and we'd appreciate your support by joining.
Thank you, Larry. So what I'd like to do is now introduce our next speaker. And I think the relevance of what he does, I think, is so important to us now. A lot of us have moved remotely, and in moving remote, there's a lot of little technology bugs that come up. And I know in my own personal day, I moved remote. I was worried about my mail. I was worried about my phone. I was worried about my emails. I was worried about my staff, who's also working remote. And every day I find a little glitch. And what I also understand, which David will go into, is it also exposes you and your clients to a lot of security risk. And with no further ado, I'm going to introduce to you David Steiner. He's with Cypress Grove Technologies, and this is what he does. So,
good morning, everyone. Let me go ahead and
David.
share my screen. Okay, share and beginning.
while he's booting everything up, let's just remember that you can submit questions through the chat box. And this way, we let him run his presentation, then he can answer questions as they come up.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. Everybody can see my my title slide there?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So we're Cypress Growth Technologies. A couple of you guys already know me. For the rest of you, we are a we are an IT company based here in Long Island. We were founded in 2013. Let me just adjust. Okay, there we go. We were founded in 2013 by my business partner in May, and I joined by the end of that year. Between my partner, my experience, plus our staff, we have nearly 50 years in the IT business. As I was talking with Larry, my office is 50 feet from the Long Island Railroad Station here in Albertson, which also puts me less than 2 miles from all the major highways. This allows us access to all of Long Island and the boroughs. As a result, over the years in business, we have focused on professional services on Long Island and Manhattan, particularly in law firms. About 70% of our clients fall into the legal or finance field, with the vast majority of that in the legal field. Oops. So we have a specialty working with those professionals in compliances, which I'll talk about later. So a lot of my clients will ask me, what are we going to do for you? So one of the things that makes Cypress Grove relatively unique in the marketplace is we're a managed service provider, or what we like to call an MSP. A managed service provider is a company that manages 100% of our clients' technology. And because we work with so much of our clients' technologies, MSPs work on a flat subscription basis, basically one all-inclusive fee for all of your monthly services. You know, that fee obviously ranges depending on your needs, but no more surprise invoices or anything like that. It also means that there's no more hesitation to call because you're worried about a bill. So you just call us once or 1,000 times in any given month, and we've got your back. So we're the experts. We we breathe technology. I can't tell you how many times my partner and I are sitting here in the office, just geeking out on some new piece of software, some new, startup that just happened. It's between our sci-fi and our technology, we really do live and breathe this. So because of that, we provide our clients increased efficiency. The better we are, the less you call, the more we both make. The MSPs are aligned with the business owner's interest, whereas other business models like break fix bill you for work done, so the incentive to do the job correctly and fast is not in their best interest. So it's in their best interest to work slower and not even to dive deep to solve the problem permanently. Oftentimes you may have a tiny little problem, some of these glitches that Neil's talking about that show up every day, but if you spend a couple of hours, you may just eliminate the problem altogether. These guys, these break fix guys, have no incentive to do that because their clients aren't going to, take a 7-hour bill for a 15-minute fix. So what we do is we free you up to focus on your business because we're going to dive in and spend that time allowing you to get back to work right away. As a result, we are profit enablers. The key to remember is your MSP is not your vendor, we are your partner. So because of that alignment of business interest, your success is our success. So the next question I get often is, how does an MSP help me? Well, as your partner, we work with your company to understand and streamline many aspects of your business. We don't just look at your IT. We look at your entire business. Many software tools are misconfigured and the end users don't get to use them to their fullest potential. SharePoint is a great example of that. I can't tell you how many times we sign on a client, they're using G Drive SharePoint and they're using it to 10% of its capacity. And when we show them what it can do, they're just blown away. Same things with things like Teams and even things like Zoom. There's just a lot of unknown tools that our clients aren't aware of that we help them help show them. And in most cases, the more you use a tool, the better you get at it. And many of our clients, like I said, are unaware of the capabilities of their software suite until we showed them how much. We also work with all of your technology vendors. We negotiate on your behalf. We act as frontline support. For example, if your copier breaks down, this is more of a, when you're in the office scenario, but when your copier breaks down, rather than spending on the phone with an hour on the phone with Xerox yourself, you call us and you go back to work in 5 minutes. We call Xerox, we'll troubleshoot it with their staff, but often we'll actually resolve the problem faster because more often than not, it's a network issue and we know the network because we manage the network. So whether it be a phone issue or a copier issue or a printer issue, we help get that issue resolved faster. We become the one call for you and your staff for all issues you face daily. No more Googling to find the issue or tracking down the 17 phone numbers for all your vendors. You just call us. We keep track of all that and we take care of that. We also pride ourselves in our service. Every call is picked up like by a live person. We have our staff here on Long Island, and then we also have a live answering service. Most email tickets are responded to within 8 minutes or less and resolved in under an hour. So that, again, increases your overall firm efficiency. We also provide all your standard desktop user and server support. So that makes us your network administrator. We support all your staff, whether they're having an issue with their mobile phone or their laptop or their computer or a website or any aspect of their technology, we support you and your staff. It allows them to do so in a way to let us know very quickly, text message, phone call, email, and just jump right back to work. The other piece that we do is we manage your cybersecurity. This is the most important piece of what we do, but it's definitely something that is not in your face. As your network administrator, we have to be cybersecurity experts. And like I said, this is the real power in what we do, and it's often behind the scenes. The importance of having the right cybersecurity expert on your team costs pennies on the dollar. I was having a conversation with Bruce Libman Monday, and he says, what you do is so cheap in comparison to what it costs if you don't do it right. That's what Bruce Libman said, if any of you guys know him. So because cybersecurity touches every aspect of your business, your email, your software, your phones, everything, it's of paramount importance that you have someone that understands cybersecurity for you. So just a couple of quick examples of how we've helped some of our clients. We had a 130-person law firm who was subject to HIPAA. His personal email, the principal's personal email was breached, but because of my team and the work that we do, we were able to stop that breach from getting onto the network, avoiding a HIPAA issue. We saved him millions of dollars of potential fines. Yeah, same client. He had a lot of inefficiencies in his network. He was running a pretty heavy case management system in Microsoft Azure. He was paying a ton of money every month. He was paying $18,000 a month and growing to Azure. We moved them to a private data center, migrated them to new case management software. So by moving them to a data center, we were able to save them $16,000 a month in overhead. That was only going to grow, whereas that $2,000 was flat. By switching programs, we were able to recover about 40 hours of labor per week by eliminating a number of steps in the login process. So we estimate that we saved them several hundred thousand, maybe close to $800,000 all in per year. We only cost them a third of that. So again, it's all about efficiencies. Another example is on a much smaller client. This was a 5-person immigration law firm. We negotiated terms with several vendors on the client's behalf, bringing their technology cost down by $1,500 a month. Their net cost bringing us on was less than with their previous vendor, despite us being 2.5 times the cost of their previous vendor. The last thing is, this is actually just a few months ago, we brought on a new client who does fleet mechanics. He services trucks. His client is the MTA, LSG Sky Chefs. I have another client who's got a fleet of 30 service vehicles. I put them in touch. He was able to give them a price that was lower than what they were paying. And because they have 30 vehicles, they were spending more on their vehicle maintenance with their IT. So that 20% was greater than their monthly spend with me. And the mechanic client earned that money to service those vehicles. So for both of those clients, my services became a profit center instead of a cost center. So some of our services, obviously, cybersecurity is a big topic these days, but we do a lot more than just cybersecurity. This list is comprehensive, but we do a great many things in addition to what we see here, the desktop and user support, our telecommunication. We were talking about, Neil mentioned phones earlier. If you're on the right phone system, you can work anywhere. We work with over 250 providers in that space, both on the circuit side, phone side, call center side, whatever your telecommunication needs are, we can provide that. We're Google partners, Microsoft partners, as well as Cisco and Dell. And then on cybersecurity, we've got a number of different vendors and tools that we use to maintain that. In addition to that, we also offer physical security, cameras as access control, so your ID badges to get into your office. We'd also do call and contact center, so when you call your insurance company, you know, you're waiting on hold, you got that pretty hold music, and then that person says, hang on, let me pull up your file. That system we can deliver with a very white glove experience. I've got deep relationships with the top 5 providers. We do many, many different things. So if there's a question about technology, give me a call. Chances are either I can do it, I have a vendor that can do it, or I can recommend someone within that space. So before I move on, do we have any questions so far?
We're pretty good so far, my friend.
Awesome. So now our main topic, right? I did the little bouncy to be dramatic, so I hope that wasn't.
Now you work with small clients as well as big clients.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just very simply, just move into the house and making sure that your emails are secure, making sure your phones are secure,
Yep.
making sure your data is secure, making sure your website's secure. These are all important things. So thank you.
Very, very true. And to your point, Neil, my client base ranges from one user to about 150, and my capacity is up to about 250. And it's not about revenue, it's not about size, it's about users. So for example, a law firm with 50 people is going to have 50 users, but a manufacturer with 200 staff is only going to have 30 or 40 users because they're all in the office. The guys on the manufacturing line or delivery or whatever the case may be, those aren't users. So a large company may not necessarily be a large client. So that's always good to keep in mind, because if they're not a large client, it's not a big deal for them. So I'm going to address, in the next couple of slides, I'm going to address all the points that Neil just mentioned, talking about cyber risk while working from home. So the question is, what are the problems that we're facing? With everyone working at home, we have a lot of the same problems and a set of new problems and a lot of different versions of the same problems. So our employees used to work inside the network behind a firewall. They were inherently secure and also allowed for easy document sharing. Most employees don't have the firewalls at home, and neither do their coworkers. So the easy, convenient way is just to log on and not be secure because it's fast and it's simple, but it's not secure. Many of these issues have definitely existed, but now are being brought to the forefront. Again, like we've always had to work at home staff, but now everyone is. So your wireless connections are getting hammered, your server's working overtime. If you're in cloud-based, you're fine, but if you've got anything on-prem, you're remoting into your office, those systems are getting taxed. So you need someone that understands how to work those systems to reduce that strain. The other piece, like I mentioned, is the employees don't have the correct hardware at home. That subpar hardware can face performance issues. If someone is running an 8-year-old desktop that's underperformed on Windows Home, they're not going to be able to log on to your network. They're not going to be as efficient. So it's important as business owners that we invest in our staff to make sure that they do have the right hardware. Sometimes that consumer grade hardware doesn't even have the necessary components. I've seen laptops that don't have the right bandwidth. Older laptops have bad Wi-Fi antennas. All of these things affect efficiency. Then, of course, they're typically running subpar security, if at all, on their personal equipment. So it's really, really, really important that we extend the business security over to your employees on their personal machines on these times. That's probably one of the most important things, that we extend the corporate security as deep as it can go into your employees' machines to ensure that that they have the right security. So the other big issue is a lot of business owners in regular times are not typically aware of their exposure. You know, we're all professionals here. I happen to be a technology professional. You guys are professionals in your space. That makes you experts in your space. You know, I've had a couple of conversations with Neil recently. You know, having been in the life insurance business years ago, I can tell you definitively he's at the top of the game. But what does he know about technology? That's not his job, right? My job is technology. Your job is whatever you do. So it's important to be aware that you know this. Sorry. Jumped ahead. It's important that you're aware and that you focus on your business operations and bring in a trusted IT person or vendor, because as we've established, these risks are great with every day, and even more so now because of the problems I've mentioned. So now, how are we helping with those problems? As we've continually discussed here and elsewhere in every form and format you can, security at home is the biggest issue that we're discussing. It's hard enough to control your office, your employees when they're at the office. It's even more important to do so while they're at home. There's a lot of repetition because I want to drive some of these points home. So it's important to do so when they're at home. Email is a huge issue. We're the email experts, and we apply that expertise to our clients' email systems. Without fail, email systems are the most vulnerable of any of your systems. They are the greatest vector of attack for cyber events. 90% of the hacks that you're going to get, the viruses you're going to get, the ransomware you're going to get, you know, all of these nasty things that you could possibly get are going to be delivered through email. So email is the most important thing. So there are a number of security protocols that are baked into every single email system. Neil, you and I have had this conversation. The vast majority of ITs don't even know how to configure these. I've been, not me, my business partner has actually worked with some other IT companies here in Long Island to improve their email and improve their email for their clients because they realize they don't do it. It is the most important thing. I can't stress that enough. So with that said, we're doing a lot of email migrations and reconfigurations, moving from subpar systems onto better systems, reconfiguring good systems like Google and 365 for better security. So that's probably the vast majority of the new business that we're doing lately is fixing people's email, because again, it's the biggest threat that you have. The other piece is, of course, your firewall. Everybody's got a firewall. I hope everybody's got a firewall at the office. What we're doing is we're working with those firewalls to extend them to the employee's home. The methodology of how that works is different for every piece of hardware, but it involves VPNing and whatnot. I can get into the technicals if you're interested offline. But ultimately, what we're doing is we're extending that firewall, that corporate security, over to your employee's home. So in addition to the email security, we're adding the physical security of the firewall, and that allows for much greater control and visibility for the business owner as well. The other thing that we've been doing is pushing harder for multi-factor authentication. A lot of our clients don't want it, don't understand it. I'm going to go into the explanation of these terms, at the end of the slide. A lot of the clients push back on multi-factor because it is a couple of extra steps, but it is probably the greatest thing you can do to secure your network is by using a multi-factor authentication. So just look at my camera for a second. This little black dongle that I'm holding up, where is it? There it is. This is my multi-factor. I can tell you my Windows password or my email password, and it doesn't matter because without this dongle, you can't get in. I'll explain more about that later. So what we're doing is we're pushing a lot of our clients who've been against it into the multi-factor authentication, increasing their security substantially. It also, you can tie it into various pieces of software, so it increases both software and network security. The next issue that we talk about is efficiency. I mentioned that earlier. The process of making a client secure, also by the nature of security, slows them down. So it's a matter of finding a balance between network security and network efficiency. So we've deployed technologies like VPN, which are more secure, but they do slow down. So we've upgraded a couple of our clients' internet connections to compensate. But the good thing about using technologies like VPN is that we can keep the employee efficiency almost the same level as when they're in the office, because when you're VPNing into the office, you're essentially, from a networking perspective, in the office physically. Your computers, your printers think you were sitting at your desk. So you can print things, you can share files on the server much easier, much faster, because it's happening at your office. It also allows for better authentication, again, with better for security and efficiency. By using VPN into your server, we can use technology like single sign-on, which is linked to multi-factor authentication, allowing for one password for multiple systems. While that may seem like it's a little risky, when you couple it with multi-factor authentication, it actually becomes more efficient because the employee spends less time inputting credentials. You may not think inputting credentials is a big deal, but if you've got to put credentials in for 10 different programs over the course of the day, and each one takes you, 3 minutes, you wasted a half an hour. What can you have done with that half an hour? That goes back to the efficiency we gave that client in the example of moving them software. It was just a matter of eliminating a couple of login steps, and we were able, one of the factors was we were able to tie it into the single sign-on for the network. So once they logged into Windows, they were automatically logged into the system. So they saved 15 minutes times 125 people. So we've also been working with our clients to move them from their on-premise phone systems to hosted phone systems, to improve their phone systems if they're already on hosted. We had a couple of clients that were hesitant to move off of their Optimum digital phone or the Verizon digital phone because there were 2 or 3 people. They didn't want the bill. What they realize now is by having a proper phone system, a hosted phone system, meaning in the cloud, they can work from anywhere. So again, we've increased their employees' efficiency. Most of these hosted phone systems have mobile applications that basically give you the exact same functionality and sometimes even more functionality than the desktop phone. So again, it's increased efficiency. And in most cases, when I'm switching a client's phone system, I'm actually saving them money and increasing their efficiency. So it's overall, it's good for the work at home. It's more secure, it's more stable, it's more resilient, it's flexible, and it's often cheaper. So the big thing that we talk about both at work at home and regular is how important a good cybersecurity posture is. It's going to improve your network security and employee efficiency, all of what I've talked about so far. And it's going to save you countless thousands of dollars in remediation costs. I can spew all kinds of numbers about costs, but I'm pretty sure all of us have a pretty good idea of what a violation of HIPAA or DFS or any of the compliances that we're subject to is going to cost. It's ridiculous what the costs of a breach are if you don't do your job, and your job is due diligence. So it's important to have that good cybersecurity posture. So I'm going to go into some of the details of some of these tools and policies and procedures that I just talked about. So from our opinion, one of the most important things is going to be clearly defined cybersecurity policies. These are not only good practices to work at home, but they're also great under regular circumstances. To ensure those practices I spoke of are executed effectively, you need to talk to your IT vendor or team. We will help you or do it for you and help you or do the cybersecurity policies for you. In fact, for most of you, many of these cybersecurity policies are required by the compliances. If you're subject to New York State DFS Part 23, which is insurance, banking, or finance law, which is insurance guys, CPAs, etc., DFS actually specifically requires you to have a cybersecurity, written documented cybersecurity policy. But even if you're not required to, it's a really, really good idea to have that, because that becomes your security Bible. So when you have a new employee, you can provide that to them. They can read it. As I said earlier, an educated employee is an effective employee. An effective employee is a safe employee. The other piece is properly configured endpoint security. That's your anti-malware, antivirus, things like that. It's also good scanning, active scanning. It's important to have a proactive company so they're constantly scanning this, because again, you're focused on what you guys do. You shouldn't be focused on the little pop-ups about a virus. We're there to take care of that. We're watching it. We're getting alerts if you're downloading something nefarious and the systems pick it up. So it's really important to have that properly configured endpoint security. Then we got the properly configured VPN. I talked about that. I'm going to go into some details on these again. This is another really, really, really important piece I'm going to talk about is the zero trust life. I'll explain that in a moment. And then, of course, your multi-factor authentication, which I touched on. So the cybersecurity policies, they're the foundation of any business. Like I mentioned, DFS Part 23 and New York State SHIELD Acts are both mandate having these documented policies. HIPAA doesn't require it, but if you don't have it and you have a HIPAA breach, they're going to find you negligent and you're going to get screwed. So it's important to make sure that you have these documented cybersecurity policies. They will provide all the guidance your employees need. As I said, they can read it, that you can point out, you can summarize it, whatever the case may be. As I mentioned, people are the weakest link, so this will help teach them to be safe. Everything I talk about today and much more should be in the policies. Some compliances will actually specifically dictate what is included in the policy and what is not. They need to be in place now and always, regardless of the pandemic. However, if you don't have the documented policies, now is the time to institute them. If you're going to hire someone today, part of your new employee package should be your cybersecurity policies. No question about it. So jumping to endpoint security, it's a wide-reaching term, includes many, many different systems. Most managed service providers do offer this as a suite of services. We do. They are bundled with our managed security offering. They include anti-malware, antivirus protection to protect, detect, and correct. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. Malware across multiple endpoint devices and operating systems. So an endpoint is anything that is at the end of your network. So it could be your Wi-Fi device, could be your mobile phone, could be your printer. But generally speaking, when we talk about endpoint, we're talking about your workstation or your laptop. So that's where the anti-malware and antivirus lives. A lot of your security cameras and your wireless access points, they're going to have security built in, at least at the commercial grade. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about consumer grade versus commercial grade. Your consumer grade cameras may cost you $90. Well, they'll have no security. You spend $250 on a commercial camera. Excuse me. And you're going to get baked in security. You go buy an expensive HP printer. They've got security baked in. When you go and buy that $90 brother, it does not. So it's important to keep that in mind as well. The next piece is an email gateway. It's part of your endpoint security. Your email gateway is otherwise known as your spam filter. That's used to block phishing and social engineering and spam attempts targeting your employees. Again, the education is going to be the most important part, but also having some of these tools as well. There are definitely a number of other tools. The spam filter can monitor the both incoming and outgoing to ensure that nothing gets to the end users. There's a piece of technology built into spam filter called DLP, which is data loss prevention. That monitors outbound. And then, of course, your spam filter, it's all the same product, but it's two different pieces, monitors the inbound. A good filter can prevent phishing. Not so good filter can't really do much for phishing. A strong web filter will make sure that you don't inadvertently visit a compromised website, basically protects you against yourself. Windows also has a firewall built in that you should use in addition to your corporate firewall and in addition to your VPN. And then, of course, your proactive web security. That's more than just the filter. So there's a couple of pieces to web security. There's the filter that stops you from going to a bad site. There's also a filter that stops you from downloading something nefarious. There's a couple of different layers. It gets a little complex. I'm more than happy to talk about the technical side of that, but just know that it's a very, very important piece. And then again, you've got your firewall. We talked about the corporate firewall, the Windows firewall. It's important to have these to block those hostile network attacks. And then what is most important, well, not most, but one of the most important pieces is your email and disk encryption. Email encryption is difficult to do. There's a number of different tools that you can use to make sure that your data is secure. All compliances require some level of disk encryption. If you're running Windows 10, 10 Pro, you can natively do it. You don't need any additional software. It needs to be done, and it can be done efficiently. So the next part is going to be your VPN. I'm assuming most of you guys know what a
If
VPN
the
is.
computer's not muted,
You want to come in?
excuse me, I'm gonna mute everybody except for the speaker. Maybe you can unmute yourself. There we go. David, just unmute yourself and then we can, I'll do it. Here we go.
Perfect. Cool.
There you go. Sorry about that.
So I'll kind of breeze through the VPN part because I'm assuming most of you guys know. You know, it's a virtual private network. It creates an encrypted tunnel between your computer and your network. Like I said earlier, it's essentially like being on your desktop. The systems on the other end have no idea. This long virtual wire is secure, and the data through it traveling through it is also encrypted. So it does allow you to work as if you were at your desk, and even allows for remote printing. So for example, Larry, you're in your office, but you've got Larry Bloom, you've got employees at home. You know, they need to print a return or whatever document you're working at. They can be at home on a VPN and print to a network printer at your office, however you've got it configured. So, I mean, that's a huge piece of efficiency, because in most cases, offices are not completely shut down. The business owners are still going in, or whatever the case may be. So, you know, what we're finding is a lot of split workforce. So it's important to have this. It also allows you to use the programs that are running on your server, you know, securely and efficiently. If you're trying to do it, you know, via a website, you know, upload and download, it gets sloppy and you know, inefficient. So you know, the VPNs are generally easy to use and come in many variants. As I've said a couple of times, stay away from the consumer grade offerings. It's a false sense of security. Think of like NordVPN. It's a fine product if you want to do what my brother does, which is, you know, stream Netflix from the US while he's in Switzerland. It's not a good way to be secure. So stay away from those consumer grade. It is not, it's not doing what you think it's doing. So the next piece is Zero Trust. Zero Trust within my space, within the technology field, is a methodology of writing software and authentication. But what I'm talking about is both that methodology for managing the infrastructure, but as well as a way of interacting with the technology. And specifically today, I'm talking about the way of interacting. So if you don't trust anyone, you can't be burnt. Now, that's a lonely life, but it also makes for a secure life. So, you know, your mother calls you, you say, okay, let me call you back on the known phone number that you know is your mother. Now, I don't actually expect you to go to that degree. That's just an example. But if you take that level of paranoia and tone it down just a little bit to, you know, so it offsets the lack of efficiency, you're going to stay much more secure. The biggest weakness in any network are its users. The best cybersecurity is one that you and your employees actually follow. So if you include Zero Trust in those cybersecurity policies, and you teach that mentality to your employees, they will probably do more for your company's cybersecurity than anything else. Because if they are suspicious and they are trained and they understand how to recognize the threat, they can avoid the threat much more efficiently. The key to that is never, ever, ever give any information unless it's verified. I can't tell you how many times I've heard stories of my boss says, I'm just going to open up the chat. So Larry, the Zero Trust and High Trust, these are all terms. I'm personally not familiar with high trust in this context. I'm assuming it means the same thing. It really is a sense of paranoia, right? You have to have a basic sense of paranoia, and it sounds, you know, creepy, but it's important to be paranoid and not trust. You know, we get calls. I mean, you know, we got a call recently from a guy claiming to be Microsoft. He had me going for about 90 seconds. Now, 90 seconds is a long time to get me going. I've had client, like, you know, we had a client that was on the phone with someone for like 45 minutes before they realized it was a scam. And fortunately, they didn't surrender any information. It's so scary how sophisticated these guys get. and there's no software that you can use to prevent that. So that's why zero trust is so important. So if you live by this, if you live by these principles, you will inherently be more secure. Larry, definitely has to do with HIPAA compliance. Zero trust, high trust. I mean, high trust is probably something in HIPAA that I can't remember because it's been a while since I read the regs. Zero trust doesn't really come into play in a lot of cases in some compliances because it's more of a methodology of writing software and authentication than what I'm talking about. This is more of a way to live per se. So along with the zero trust is that multi-factor authentication. It comes in many, many forms. Quite simply, it is something you have plus something you know. Many consumer services like banks use SMS to deliver the second factor. Even if you're not using it on your network, you've used it in the past. Whether you forgot your password or then you just need to verify, so they send you an email or a text message or whatever the case may be. Some apps like Facebook will actually authenticate you using code sent to your mobile. So when I go to log into my desktop version of Facebook, it kicks a code to my mobile device to confirm that I am who I am. So that's part of zero trust. It's a confirmation of everything. Trust but verify. For business, you should be using something like Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator. We personally use Microsoft Authenticator. I also have Google Authenticator for some personal stuff. There's also other companies like Sophos. So there's a lot of different companies out there, but I would stick with a known brand like Microsoft, Google, or Sophos. So with using multi-factor authentication, it's extremely effective in protecting your email and other systems. As I mentioned earlier, email is the greatest cyber attack vector, and with MFA, even if a hacker gets your email password, they can't do anything with it because I can tell you what my password is. Without that second factor, there's no way you can get in. I lost my second factor once. It took me and my business partner, who followed all of the rules, and it still took us 2 hours to get into my system because it's so secure. It's sometimes free, often it's usually inexpensive, sometimes free, depending on what the software is. If you're tying it into your Windows domain, there's a piece of software that you have to buy, but if you're tying it into your email, it's free. So it's a matter of how you set it up. So that's what I've got for you guys today. My conclusion is real simple. As professionals, you rely on your clients rely on you to provide them with good counsel on their matters. Who do you rely on for good, effective technical and security guidance? A good outsourced IT firm will be very familiar with these and other regulations. It's important to find a good, reputable company, engage with them. They will help you maintain a good security posture. I just wish I knew a good company. I'm kidding. I'm open for any conversations, offline advice. You just want to run something by me, shoot me an email, give me a call. Our assessments are free. We do a pretty deep dive into your systems before we even give you a quote. Our quotes tend to be extremely accurate. I can't remember the last time I asked a client for more than what I quoted them. So with that said, does anybody have any questions? Yes, Larry.
Okay, so, and this may apply to other people on the call as well. So in this whole WFH work from home environment, clearly when I'm in my office, and we're working directly through our network, we have all the protocols in place in terms of security and things like that. We have hosted software in the clouds that we access. Mm-hmm. So you basically just need a computer and an internet connection. You don't actually have to go through my server.
Right.
So with my staff working from home, is there any risk to our data because of their PCs if they're not going through my network? Like, in other words, if somebody working from home could either work on their laptop and go directly to our software provider, or they can be logged in at their desk here and working through our network. Is my data at risk if
Yes.
they're working?
So the stream from the computer to the software is going through the public internet no matter what, unless you are, have one of those rare softwares that'll actually allow you to VPN in. There's other, ways to connect to these hosted softwares. But what's most important is those remote employees don't have your firewall set up. So assuming you have a firewall at the office, if they remote into their PC at the office via a VPN and RDP, not LogMeIn or any of these pieces of software, it's going to be secure. And then when they go out anything that's trying to sneak back in is going to hit the firewall first. Whereas if they're doing it on their home PC with no firewall in place, anything that's going to try to sneak back in is not. So yeah, that's the answer. It's still advisable to VPN into the office because that's where you have your corporate security.
David, I had a question.
Go ahead, Larry.
So I have my employees working from home from their computers. Only 2 of them took computers home from the office to hook up. What if they've already been hacked on their private computers at home? When they VPN in, aren't we giving them access through the VPN to
Not
our
necessarily.
system?
Not necessarily. So it's a lot of what you're saying goes down to configuration. So what we would do is we would actually create a VLAN for those work computers at home. Do we all know what a VLAN is?
No.
Okay, a VLAN is a virtual local area network. So your network at home or at work is called a local area network. So a VLAN is a virtual. So a VLAN is a logical separation of devices. And what that means is that work computer that they took home is logically separated from their home computer. They can't talk to each other. So even if that home computer is massively infected, that VLAN will separate that. The problem is that if they don't have the right equipment, we can't do that. So that's what we want to do. It's not always possible. If we can't do it, then yes, you're right. There is definitely risk. If possible, and this is not something that most clients do, and definitely not what most business owners will do for their employees, it's a good idea to even have a separate internet connection. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to swallow that. That gets very expensive. But again, what we talk about is a balance, right? I can make you 100% secure. I can make you completely hack-proof. But the cost is I'm unplugging you, which means you're completely inefficient. So it's a matter of finding that balance. So what we would do, and what we typically don't do, is work on employees' computers, personal stuff. If it touches the work network, we do it. So we are, under current conditions, we are extending that, of course, and we are including all personal computers for employees working at home. And what we do is we go in there and we clean up anything. We remove viruses. We reformat if it has to go that far. We install our security suite, the antivirus, anti-malware, et cetera, to ensure that those computers are safe. Because to your point, not everybody's going to have that firewall and have that ability to create that VLAN. So we do the very, very best to make sure that everything is safe. Any other questions? I love questions.
Any questions? Listen, I appreciate, David, what you're doing. Listen, we're all sharing data now virtually where we didn't in the past.
Yep.
And whenever we share more data or we're doing it across different ways, there's opportunity for people to jump in. And that's why I thought it was so important that you spoke today. My son works in fraud, and he taught me many things about what can be done. So his job is to understand the hackers so that he, like you. So David is available to everybody. I will, when we do a follow-up email to everybody, David's information will be there. We hope you enjoyed today's session. And if there's any other questions, please ask,
Yes.
Neil, I just want to, not a question, I just want to announce there will be a follow-up email tomorrow, most likely, regarding this presentation. It's a good opportunity for you to express, a review of what you thought about the presentation, and also suggest any other topics that are relevant to you and what you would like to hear. It helps us planning.
And by the way, I also welcome any feedback. If there's something you really liked, something you didn't like, if I moved too fast, moved too slow, feedback is always welcome, always trying to improve. That's the nature of our game. The funny thing, I was having a conversation with my business partner the other day, and it's something that we've repeated several times over the years. He's of the opinion that the hackers have won. All we can do is try to stop them from getting in, but they've already won the war. They're smarter than us. They've got better tools than us. We're just trying to do our best to keep ourselves secure. If we accept that as fact, and we accept the fact that the digital world that we live in is more dangerous than it used to be, we are going to be inherently safer. Just a quick point before I finish about data sharing. It all boils down to configuration, whether you're using SharePoint, G Drive, hard drives in your office, cloud systems. It's all a matter of connection and configuration to ensure that you and your employees can access your data quickly and efficiently and securely. Again, we are more than happy to have those conversations, take a look at what you got and give you suggestions on how to improve it. And those conversations are no cost. So,
All right, thank you.
thanks very much, guys. I really appreciate all of your attention. Rob
Thank
Fisher,
you.
it's great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
Have a great day, everyone.
Take care.
Everybody stay safe. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.